If you like bald, creepy guys with goggles and 3 legs, I mean 3 arms, then Genestealer Cult are for you. Kia ora and welcome back to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and we're back with another Necromunda gang guide. Now, normally I'd do this face to face, but I'm unable to shoot in the garage because the rain is so heavy that it's just incredibly loud on the roof, and you can't hear me. You can't hear my voice. I've tried to record it twice already and it just didn't work. So we're going to go to the old school conventional method here, and I'm just going to show you some photos while you can listen to my dulcet tones. Now, so as you know, I've been doing lots and lots of gang guide videos, and I'm working my way backwards really, and leaving the house gangs until last. So far I've done Venators, we've done Outcasts, we've done Helots, Corpse Grinder Cults, Ogryns, and I don't know, I think this is the next one actually. So Genestealer Cult, eh? Lots to talk about here. They're not a gang that I've had a huge amount of experience with playing as, however I have played against them in nearly every campaign over the last few years and do know the rules inside out, I suppose, in some ways, but like I said, I haven't had direct experience myself, so please forgive me if I do get some things wrong here. Of course, the Genestealer Cult list has gone through a few changes and erratas over the last couple of years since it was released in White Dwarf magazine, but essentially it's better now than it was. Anyway, so Genestealer Cult, what are they? So I mean, obviously I'm pretty old school, and I remember Genestealer cultists and Genestealers themselves all the way back in the, well, they must have been sort of Rogue Trader era, 40k, and they've always looked very cool. They've always had a really cool aesthetic, and they've always had some cool fluff as well. I'm not going to go into all the fluff here and actually give you too much information about what they are and stuff, because you can find that out easily online, but really all I'm going to do is talk about how they are in Necromunda and where they fit, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and just go through the gang list and give you some ideas on how you might build them. So, to start things off with, I'm going to go through the strengths and weaknesses. Now, overall, I would say that Genestealer Cults at present probably sit somewhere near the middle to lower tier in terms of the gang power ratings, for me anyway. Again, you might disagree with this, you might think they're the strongest gang in the game, but I really don't, for a number of reasons. I do think that the weaknesses do outweigh the strengths with this gang, and we're going to go straight into it actually and talk about the strengths and weaknesses here. So, starting with the strengths, of course, the first thing I look at really with Genestealer Cult is I feel the skill sets are really, really strong. So what I mean by that is that we have access to cunning and ferocity pretty much throughout the entire gang. Now, the cunning skill tree and the ferocity skill tree are arguably 2 of the best in the game. Also, I believe that your leader, if you take one of the leaders in fact, gets shooting access, and the other leader does get weird powers now as well, which are now much more viable. So that's your skill access. The other thing is, in terms of stats, I would say they have the best cool in the game. The cool stat is the one that is dictates how bottle rolls are made and whether you leave the field, and whatnot, and whether you freak out when your mates get shot in the face right next to you. The cool stat is really important in Necromunda, and Genestealer Cults have an incredibly high cool across the board there as well, even higher than Goliaths, I believe. The other thing, of course, just I touched on it a minute ago, is that you have access to a Psyker, an unsanctioned Psyker in the Cult ADEPT. Now, you do have 2 leader choices here, and I'm going to go into them in a second, but one of the leaders is much more of a sort of generalist leader. He's pretty tough, he's pretty good at shooting and stuff. The other leader, and the one I'm talking about now, is the Adept, and this guy does get access to psychic powers. Now, prior to the Book of the Outcast, you didn't really get a lot of choice on the psychic powers that you got, and they were suboptimal at best. Now, however, should your arbitrator allow it, the general lists for all the different 7 disciplines are accessible for your Cult Adept. So personally, I think telepathy works really, really well with this guy in a fluff sense. I think that he is a telepath, so telepathy would probably be my go-to for this. Not only because telepathy is the strongest, arguably, but it just suits the Adept, I think, as well. So yeah, another gang that has access to weird powers from the off. The last strength I'm just going to highlight quickly is the third leg. Third arm. Now the third arm is something that you can take on your fighters to give them an extra attack in close combat and be able to carry unwieldy weapons, move and shoot basically. So kind of like a suspenser, pretty handy, really nice. And it also means that you can, again, if your arbitrator allows it, have that gunfighter with 3 auto pistols leader, the Kellermorph I believe his name is. Okay, so moving into some of the weaknesses. The glaringly obvious weakness, and the one that I've discussed with quite a few people on all sorts of platforms, is the fact that you only get 1 wound on your champions. Now, I'll repeat that, 1 wound champions. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible, and it really, really nerfs the gang in general. I would say that is the biggest weakness for Genestealer cults at present. I'm not sure why the champions only get 1 wound, whether that's a misprint, whether that's Games Workshop deliberately doing it, I'm not really sure, but it's the elephant in the room when you're talking about Genestealer cult and the problems that they have. 1 wound champions. It's terrible. Yeah, so they can still do what other champions do. They can still be snipey, they can still be quite good in the game and have an impact. However, they just aren't very survivable, and having 1 wound is just a real problem. The other big weakness, I would say, is that Genestealer cults are incredibly slow. What I mean is there is movement of 4 across the board, pun intended there, except for your aberrants and your leader, I believe, who have average movement. Everybody else has a movement of 4, which is very slow for a gang which is actually quite shooty. However, that is offset a little bit with some of the skills choices, like infiltrate, etc. that do mean that you've got a little bit more maneuverability in that first instance. However, yes, they're very slow. They're the same speed as Goliath, but they don't hit nearly as hard as Goliath. So it does make them feel like you need to do stuff to close the distance, because they are a short to mid-range shooty gang, really, essentially. So the other thing I just want to highlight, and again, this is strictly my own opinion, so don't hate me for it, but I just feel like Genestealer cults are bad Orlocks. I don't mean bad Orlocks as in evil Orlocks, because obviously they are evil, but I just mean they're kind of a bit like Orlocks, but just not as good. And that is going to piss a few people off, I'm sure, but that's just how I feel about it, for a number of reasons. I'm not even going to go into it, but I would just rather play an Orlock gang. You could even play an Orlock gang that's Genestealer corrupted as well, but we'll get into that at another point when I'm talking about corrupted gangs and tainted gangs, so to speak. So there you go, those are your strengths and weaknesses. Now, are they beginner friendly? This is a good question. So I would say they are beginner friendly from a perspective of modelling and hobby stuff, because they're relatively easy to get hold of the models in various different 40k box sets. Lots of people generally have Genestealer cult bits. They're also amazing for conversion work. You can combine the kits with ADMech, you can combine them with Tempestus Scions or whatever they're called. They really work well with a number of different kits. They also fit really well with the new Outcast Scum models as well. So they're really good for a beginner in that sense, in that they're really easy to paint, they're really lovely to model with and convert and stuff. But in terms of it from a gaming perspective, I would say no, because they are actually quite a complex gang. There are lots of, well, you've got a few fighter types to think about, and you've got you know, you've got your aberrants, you've got the third arm thing, you've got familiars, you've got all sorts of stuff to remember with these guys, and they're not exactly unbeginner friendly, but they're not the most beginner friendly gang, that's for sure. If you want to play something similar, again, I would perhaps take Orlocks, or maybe, I don't know, I'm not really sure, but I think Orlocks would probably be a good alternative if you are a beginner. So, moving into the next part, of course, I just want to talk quickly about what the play style of Genestealer cult is. I would say, really, the play style of Genestealer cult, obviously you've got your ferocity and your cunning skills, but the house list of equipment and stuff is really kind of what mainly dictates how they play. So I would say that, generally speaking, they are a mid to short range, or short to mid range, rapid fire / solid shot sort of gang. So you've got lots of shotguns and you've got lots of auto guns on your neophytes. You've also got quite a good leader, depending on who you take, with a bit of flexibility too. And you've also got some added close combat punch with your aberrants too. So they are quite close range generally. However, you can get access to long lasers, grenade launchers, etc. on your champs who can be a bit more shooty. But we're going to get into the specifics of the individual fighter profiles in the gang now. But there you go, that's what I see them as, a sort of short to mid-range shooty gang with a few tricks up their sleeves in terms of infiltration and overwatch and stuff like that as well. So there you go. So in terms of the actual fighters, we're going to actually look through the fighter profiles here. Now, like I mentioned before, you do have two different leader types, which is quite unique to Genestealer cults and quite fun too. And previous to the Book of Outcast, I would say that one of the leader types, the Adept, is probably the one that most people would shun and not actually use, because stats-wise, he's just nowhere near as good as the Alpha. So here's your Adept. The Adept, Genestealer cult Adept, is your psychic leader. Now, he's 120 credits, which is quite a lot. And he has access to weird powers. Now, he can take weird powers from the new book if your arbitrator is cool with that. And again, I would recommend telepathy as a strong choice for this guy. You could use skills there, psychic powers like hallucinations or terrify or mind control. Those are all really good ones that match this guy. His skill access, of course, is leadership, cunning, and weird powers. So he does get cunning. He can take cunning as well, but also leadership too, which is quite nice to have. All leaders get leadership access. Here are his actual stats, though. He's movement 4, so again, pretty slow. He's got weapon skill and ballistic skill of 4, so he's certainly no fighter or shooter. He's got a very average profile in this regard. He's got a strength and toughness of 3, 2 wounds, unlike your champs. A 3 initiative, 2 attacks, a 3 leadership, which is insanely high, cool of 5, a willpower of 5, which is excellent, particularly for casting weird powers, and an intelligence of 4. So he's incredibly strong on the mental stats here, even stronger than your new squat prospector leader on the mental front. So really smart and intelligent and incredibly cool, and got great willpower as well there too. So that's your Adept. He gets access to lots of different weapon types. Not sure if there are any restrictions on this guy off the top of my head, but you're probably not going to give him heavy weapons anyway, even if you did. So the next one, of course, is the Genestealer cult Alpha. Now this is your sort of more fighty leader. He has much better stats, but he is not a psyker, so you do have to make that choice between a psychic leader or an Alpha. The Alpha is slightly more expensive. He has 145 credits, which is quite a lot. He comes with a hazard suit and an extra arm. So he gets an extra arm and a hazard suit for free, which is included in his 145 credit cost, which is actually not too bad. Now he gets leadership, cunning, and shooting as his primary skills. So pretty cool there. It means he doesn't get ferocity though, unfortunately, but you do get ferocity on your champions and your gangers and stuff though, so that's not too bad. Now his stats are movement 5, so he's a bit faster than your average, but he is very average next to other gangers. He's got a weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3 instead of 4 next to the Adept, so he's a bit better at shooting and fighting in close combat. He's got a strength of 4, which is really nice to have, so he can hit a bit harder in close combat and also throw grenades a bit further too, so should you wish. His toughness of 3, he's got 2 wounds, initiative of 3, 2 attacks, and then again he's got the same mental stats as the Adept actually, so 3, 5, 5, 4 respectively for leadership, cool, willpower and intelligence. So really good mental stats, arguably the best in the game. However, he is not a psyker. This guy is a shooter, so you could use the Kelomorph model and have the 3 pistols with gunfighter, which is quite cool. Or you could just go down the route and have a slightly more generic sort of middle of the road leader with some shooting, some close combat, and just make the best of his pretty awesome stats actually. Or you could give him a heavy weapon, like we've got a current player in our campaign who has given his leader a mining laser, so very nice. Worth mentioning next actually is the familiars, so you can have psychic familiars on both of these leader types and your champions, I believe. Now you've got 0 to 3 of these, and they are insanely good if not broken. Now the rules as written, I believe these guys are completely too good and broken. However, rules as intended, I would say they are still very, very good for the cost. So these guys are 25 credits. They're a pet. They come with Catfall and Clamber, and they have the Omen of Fortune ability, which means that once per turn you can ignore a hit, a ranged attack. I think it's only ranged attacks. It could be close combat as well, but you've got to pass a will. Your owner has to pass the willpower check to ignore the hit. Now, when it came out, it was stating that you could ignore as many hits as you wanted. However, we've kind of changed that to once per turn, of course. So you do have to choose the hit, but usually that keeps your leader alive in most games, and very, very annoying, particularly if he's got multiple familiars as well, which you can do. So these guys are definitely very strong in the Genestealer cult list. The next thing to talk about, and my most favourite thing about Genestealer cult, is the Aberrant. Now, the Aberrant is not a brute. He is basically just a big, ferocious monster guy who runs around with heavy picks and rock saws and stuff like this. Now, the Aberrant now counts as a ganger, which is really, really cool. It didn't used to count as a ganger. It used to be, a special piece, but now he is a ganger. So you can have as many of these as you like now, I believe. At least in the rules that I've got in front of me, it says that you can have as many as you like, and they adhere to the sort of ganger fighter type rule there. So anyway, you can't squeeze that many into your list though, because they are 95 credits. Now, the other thing that they have not going for them is they only have access to close combat and armor. They have no access to any shooting weapons or war gear, which is a real pain in the ass because you want to give them grenades and you can't. That said, they're still pretty powerful, and 95 credits is quite expensive, but here are the stats. So they're movement 5, weapon skill 3, which is really, really great, ballistic skill 6, but you're never using it. They have a strength of 5, so they're very, very strong, toughness 4, very tough. They have 2 wounds each, which is great. They have an initiative of 5, 2 attacks, a leadership of 9, a cool of 4, willpower of 6, and an intelligence of 10, so they are incredibly stupid. And they come with the Unstoppable skill, which is definitely one of the better ferocity skills. This one lets you sort of heal flesh wounds when you start taking them. So on a 4-up, I believe you can recover a flesh wound each recovery phase. So that's your Aberrants, and you can give them power picks, power hammers, all sorts of big things that hurt very much when they actually do hit you. However, they are pinnable, and that is one way of trying to beat them. But it's worth noting, of course, that they are slightly faster than the rest of your gang. They have movement 5, so that's average compared to most gangs, but it does feel very fast on the Genestealer cult list. So, moving on to the Acolyte. I kind of skipped the Acolyte just because, they've only got 1 wound, like I mentioned. So the Acolyte is your champion. Now this guy is 85 credits, so they're 10 credits cheaper than your Aberrant, and they can take a primary skill when they are created. Of course, they get Cunning and Ferocity, so you can choose between things like Nerves of Steel, True Grit, or even Infiltrate or Overwatch. So, and these guys come with hazard suits as well. It's worth mentioning that the Genestealer cult in general, most of the fighters do come with armor for free, which is quite cool. So that really makes this fighter 75 credits base. However, 75 credits or 85 credits with a hazard suit for a character with only 1 wound is a little bit steep, if you ask me. So here are his stats. He's movement 4, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3, strength and toughness 3, 1 wound, as I've said, terrible, initiative of 3 up, 1 attack, and then his mental stats are leadership of 4, a cool of 5, willpower of 7, and an intelligence of 6. So of course you can give these guys a 3rd arm as well. It is 45 credits to do so, and you can give your neophytes 3rd arms as well, and this does allow you to move and shoot with a heavy weapon, but it also allows you to attack with an extra arm too, which is quite nice. So that's your Acolyte. You can give them all sorts of weapons. They can be armed with, I don't think they have any restrictions, so you can give them, grenade launchers, long lasers, if you want a sniping sort of threat, which is quite nice actually, because that does keep them out of threat a little bit more with that 1 wound. So you can keep them safe just by keeping them back as a sniper sort of role. That's definitely one of the ways I like to build them anyway. But yeah, overall, for the cost, they're kind of rubbish, and you could skip them and just take Aberrants. Instead, I just have a whole gang of Aberrants, because that's the way I like to play. moving on, so you've got neophytes next, which are your main ganger type. You can have a neophyte specialist, which means that you can carry special weapons and level up like a specialist on creation. But the neophyte stats here, now these guys, they're okay. They're just very average gangers. They've got a movement of 4 again, so they're pretty slow. Weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, strength toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 4, 1 attack, and then their mental stats are leadership 7, cool 5, so very, very good cool there. Willpower of 6 and intelligence of 8. So they're pretty good. They're very slow and they've got very average stats, except they have got a very high cool of 5 as well. So again, if and when you do bottle, they're much more likely to stick around as well. So worth noting that these guys do also come with hazard suits, and you can buy them a third arm for 45 credits as well too. Now, and these guys get access to basic close combat and all the other war gear, but not heavy weapons. And of course, yeah, just pointing out that you can take a specialist with these guys too, maybe with a grenade launcher or a web gun if you should like. So those are your stats for the Genestealer cult. They're, as you can see, not that great across the board. They're okay. They haven't got anything particularly stand out. Obviously, the main thing is the cool stat, which is very, very high. The movement, which is very, very low. But yeah, there you go. The 1 wound champs is the real problem for me. So moving on to the weapons and equipment that these guys can take, the house list, so to speak, even though they're not a house. For the pistols, they do get access to auto pistols, hand flamers, las pistols, and needle pistols. So quite nice to have needle weapons as well, just for a bit of toxin if you do want it. However, I do find needle pistols generally a bit underwhelming at times. However, they do every now and then perform pretty well and take out big stuff. And you've also, worth noting here, that you do have the excellent hand flamer as well, so you can use hand flamers on these guys, and they're pretty good too. And worth pointing out as well that the box set of neophytes or acolytes, or whichever box set that you get, does have all of these weapons on it, which is pretty cool. So you don't need to buy any extra kits from Forge World or wherever for Genestealer Cult. It all comes in the box that you buy for 40k. So there you go. For basic weapons, we've got auto guns, shotguns, and las guns, of course. Generally speaking, you're probably going to take a lot of shotguns and auto guns, maybe some las guns, but I don't actually think you get las guns on. That might be the one exception to the rule there. I think you do get lots of auto guns and shotguns on the sprues for these guys, but las guns, I suppose you could use your guard, your Imperial Guard las guns for the weapon for that. In terms of special weapons, you do get flamers, grenade launchers, webbers, which are, of course, incredibly good, and long lases. So some nice options here. Flamers are good, but not nearly as good as hand flamers for the price. We've got grenade launchers, which are excellent weapons. I'd definitely recommend taking at least one grenade launcher, maybe on your specialist in a starting list. Web guns, very, very powerful, I would say. Verging on broken, actually. But I don't think Genestealer Cult are in any way particularly good, so taking a web gun doesn't exactly make them particularly scary, but it does make them a lot more competitive, actually. And you can take a web gun on your specialist too, and that does negate the very average ballistic skill that we've got there too. They also get access to long lases, not long rifles, worth noting, but long lases, which are arguably not as good as long rifles because they don't have that -1 AP or knockback, but they are very reliable with the 2-up ammo. In terms of the heavy weapons, of course, we do get heavy stubbers, we get mining lasers, and we get seismic cannons. Now, seismic cannons are a quite strange weapon. You should go and look those up, the rules, but mining lasers are pretty solid, actually, so we're looking at a slightly underpowered version of a las cannon with a lot less range and a lot less reliability. So, but heavy stubbers, always good, and I believe you do get heavy stubbers, mining lasers, and seismic cannons all in the Genestealer Cult Neophyte box. So again, everything that you get in that box is here pretty much, except for maybe the las guns. And the long lasers, I suppose, as well. So for close combat, we get chainswords, heavy rock saws, heavy rock cutters, etc. We've got power mauls, we've got power sword. Oh, sorry, just swords, I suppose. We've got knives, we've got shock staves and shock whips as well. So a few options in the close combat department. Most of the close combat is going to be geared towards your aberrants, so you're quite likely to be taking knives, I would say, on your aberrants to start with because they're quite expensive, but you could also give them power picks and power hammers as well, which are really nice weapons. I particularly like power picks for the -3 AP and pulverize. Moving on, we've got grenades, we've got blasting charges, demo charges, frag grenades and incendiary grenades. So frag grenades probably the weakest link in there. You're probably going to be taking those on your grenade launcher as opposed to actually chucking them. Incendiary grenades are excellent, of course, and because you've got hazard suits, you don't have to worry about setting your own guys on fire either. So that's worth using as a tactic, perhaps. I'm not recommending just throwing them at yourself, but you can in a pinch, and it might help you. But incendiary charges, you know, they're huge. 5-inch template setting stuff on fire is always nice. But we've got blasting charges and demo charges too. Now, if you've watched any of our battle reports, Demo Joe, who is a infiltrating, demo charge wielding Genestealer cult ACOLYTE, who usually seems to get priority in every single turn and just throw a demo charge right into your starting lineup and usually kill your leader and stuff. So pretty fun, pretty cheeky. If you want to invest all that credit into something that is sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, then great, but it's very fun build there. Highly recommend it, actually. It's really fun, even to play against, to be honest, because the guy's just a legend. Demo Joe. In terms of armor, of course, now these guys get hazard suits for free, but should you wish to pay extra for armor, then you can get flak and mesh, but that's all you get. There's no access to armored undersuits or carapace or anything like that, unfortunately. But you can get these things from the trading post, though, of course. Worth mentioning, of course, that the Genestealer cults are outlaws, so they will only get access to the black market normally, and it's a bit harder for you to get access to the normal trading post. In terms of war gear and stuff, I'll just kind of highlight a couple of things that you can get here. So you can get bio boosters from the house list. You can get filter plugs, photo goggles, of course, because most of the models have actually got them on them, respirators, and of course the Genestealer icon, which allows you to activate one extra fighter in your sort of group activation bubble, which is quite nice at a pinch. So there you have it. That's Genestealer cults. Now, there's quite a lot to talk about there. This video is going to be quite short, though, sticking to half an hour on this one, I reckon, just because. But yeah, I've talked a lot about Genestealer cult, so I feel like if I've missed anything out here, it's because I've talked about them so much that I just kind of overlook it. But they're a fun game to play. They're a really fun game to play. Personally, I really like them because of the cunning and ferocity tree skill list. You can do some really sneaky stuff like Demo Joe that I just mentioned. You can have infiltrating snipers with Overwatch and whatnot with the long lasses. But to be honest, if I was to play Genestealer cult again anytime soon, then I would really like to play a psychic leader. Most definitely a telepathy sort of based leader with just a whole shit ton of aberrants just for fun. I know it would be terrible, but I just want to do it because it will be fun. So yeah, there you go. I think you can probably squeeze in about 5 or 6 aberrants with an adept leader, but it's a very suboptimal build. If you want to do a more generic sort of build, I would definitely suggest going with a mixture of range and short range, in long range and short range. I think the alpha is overall a bit stronger as a leader, so you could take that Kellamorph build with the 3 auto guns, dishing out a possible 9 hits per shot. So yeah, very nice with that one. But and also just taking a web gun perhaps on your web gun or a grenade launcher on your specialist, maybe 1 long las and let's say an infiltrating grenadier champion would be quite nice. Other than that, I'd say your neophytes are probably going to take a mixture of just auto guns and shotguns, and if you want to go the close combat route, you can give some of them chainswords and auto pistols, which is quite a nice build too, giving you +1 to hit and rending in close combat too, with a parry. But there you go, those are some ideas for you. Again, these opinions are just my own, so apologies if I offend any of the people out there that are meta gamers that say that I'm wrong with a lot of my choices and stuff. I do get a lot of people commenting telling me that I'm wrong quite a lot, so I try and ignore it and just carry on, to be honest, but trolls are always going to be around. And again, like, this game is not a game that you can really be wrong at. I mean, the rules are written as they are, but you can take them in any way you like with your arbitrators and the way that you play the game in your individual groups. So don't be scared of changing things a little bit and playing it how you want to play it, to be honest, because it is a sort of narrative game. I would not say it's a competitive game like 40k is. So if you want to do that sort of meta gaming, then go play 40k, because this really isn't a game for you. I don't think, anyway. It doesn't really fit. Anyway, that's those are my thoughts on Genestealer cult. I'm going to be coming back with a video on Enforcers, but first I want to actually wait and see what this White Dwarf article says about the new Bad Zone Enforcers that it looks like we're getting. Whether that's an updated gang list, whether that is a completely separate new gang, who knows? We'll have to wait and see for that one, but I will be sure to do a video on Enforcers next with that new content, I hope. So that will be next week. But we've got some battle reports coming this week. I believe my outcasts will be playing Silby's Delac and trying to defend one of our coveted territories tomorrow night as well. So stay tuned for that one. But otherwise, yeah, please like, share, subscribe, comment below, and let's get the discussion going on Genestealer cult. Peace out.